there, folks. I'm Chuck Holton, and welcome to the premiere episode of our new Secure Church podcast. It's a periodic intel brief about threats to church safety around the globe, with concrete tips and tactics to help you keep your congregation a little bit safer. The podcast is a production of Lionheart International Services Group, which is a security consulting and training company that brings some of the world's foremost security experts to the table to tackle this rapidly evolving industry called church security. Now, we went out and looked at what's available as far as training goes and realized so much of it is just simply lacking. And so we decided to offer this free venue for you to keep up on the emerging threats and share ideas that can help you build a security team that will make your house of worship a safe, ministry-focused environment where hurting people can come and get their needs met. Now, as you know, violence is rising against soft targets of all kinds around the world, and churches and Christians are specifically being targeted. For example, ISIS in Nigeria posted a video on its Telegram news channel the day after Christmas with Arabic captions, but no audio. The video showed men in beige uniforms and black masks lining up behind blindfolded captives, then shooting one and beheading the rest. A previous video seen by Reuters news agency, which this article was drawn from, said that the captives had been taken from Maiduguri and Damaturu in Nigeria's northeast, where militants have been fighting for years to set up a separate Islamist state. In that earlier video, the captives pleaded for the Christian Association of Nigeria and President Muhammadu Buhari to intervene to save them, to no effect. Now, Islamic State in West Africa province split from the militant Boko Haram group in 2016 and has now become the region's dominant jihadist group. Recall that Islamic State leader Baghdadi, who was considered the leader of ISIS, died during a U.S. military raid in Syria back in October, along with his spokesman who died in a separate military operation, and both over the same weekend. This attack was in reprisal for the deaths of both of their leaders. Now, I was in Nigeria last year reporting for the Christian Broadcasting Network. Take a look at what these Christian brothers and sisters are facing there right now. It's Sunday morning in Nigeria, and Christians across the country are heading to church. As part of the continent's largest Christian community, most believers here have their choice of places to worship. Here at the Family Worship Center, pastored by a graduate of Regent University, thousands lift their hands in praise. But just a few miles away on this Sunday, these people tried to find enough food to survive another day. I'm just outside of Abuja in the capital of Nigeria, and this is a refugee camp with about 1,500 people in it that have been internally displaced from their villages further north and to the west. There are about 2.5 million internally displaced people within Nigeria, and that makes this one of the largest humanitarian crises in the world right now. And the thing that all of these people have in common is that they're Christians. 29-year-old Aisha grew up in northern Kenya with her family, scratching out a meager living along with the rest of those in her small village. She's a Christian from one of the largest ethnic groups in West Africa. Life was hard for this young mother, and it was about to get a whole lot harder.
In November 2013, Boko Haram invaded our village. They killed my father-in-law and abducted some of the children who lived with us. We were so scared, so we fled to the mountains.
As a movement, Boko Haram has been around for a very long time, starting back in 2002, long before ISIS even became a thing. And as time went on, they got more and more extreme to the point where in 2011, they detonated a car bomb at this building behind me. That's the UN embassy here in Abuja. They've continued to kill people across the country of Nigeria, thousands in fact, to the point where in 2015, they were dubbed the most dangerous terror group on the planet. Much of that terror directed at Christians. Enoch Yohana was one of Aisha's neighbors.
They started with burning of the churches, killing the pastors, and killing the members, closing them down. On 29 September 2014 was the day that they attacked my village. Around 10, I have a call that they have killed my dad. They asked him to deny Christ, in which he refused. They have cut his right hands. Then he refused. They have cut to the elbow again, in which he refused before they shot him thrice. at the head, forehead, the neck, and chest.
Many of the 1,500 Christians living in this camp have similar stories, like Hanatu, who had to flee on foot across the border into Cameroon, carrying her 3-year-old daughter on her back.
We escaped from Boko Haram. I walked for 2 months before I reached Nigeria.
Once she arrived, she realized the camp had no school for the children, so she decided to do something about it.
The thing has touched my mind that these children, they are living like that without going to school. We sit down, we discuss and say, how are we going to do with this life of these children? Are we going to leave them like this? This Boko Haram is because of illiteracy that they start killing everybody. So if we didn't teach these children, they will affect us directly or indirectly. Now, I thank God, the children now, we have seen a great change.
Hanatu and other volunteers go beyond reading and arithmetic, also teaching the children about their heritage, since many of these little ones have never seen their true homes.
We always cry, there is a song that our children always sing, oh my home, because there is no place like home.
It's been raining all night long, and you know the polyethylene on the tops of these shacks here gets leaky very quickly.
One of the hardest things about living here is the leaky roofs during the rainy season, because water constantly drips onto our bed. We depend on people to feed us, so when they are unable to give us food, we go hungry.
The Nigerian military has mounted large offensives against Boko Haram in recent months, and even with heavy losses on both sides, there seems to be no end in sight. Despite the hardships, these displaced Christians are firm believers in the power of prayer.
My faith has helped my prayer life, and I believe the prayers of the other saints around the world have helped us to get through this hard time. My desire is for God to restore all those who have been displaced and allow us to go back to our homes so that we can worship God together and live in peace.
In Nigeria's capital city, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News. Over in Mozambique, ISIS has mounted similar small-scale attacks against the army and also targeted Christian villagers, attempting to spark sectarian tension between Muslims and Christian minority in Cabo Delgado. The group's Mozambique-focused propaganda included written claims of attacks and images showing seized weapons and ammunition. Now, since early June 2019, when ISIS announced its presence in Mozambique, the group has claimed a total of 16 attacks via their messaging app Telegram. And most of the attacks were against the army and followed arson attacks targeting the homes of civilian Christians and attacks against the alleged collaborators and spies for the army. Now, closer to home, a police chase ended with a screwdriver-wielding man running into a church sanctuary during a Christmas concert at the First Baptist Church of Pasadena, Texas, which is near Houston. Now, check out this report from the local news station, KPRC.
Chaos in the middle of a Christmas concert, all caught on camera.
This guy's tripping.
The incident that started in the parking lot of the First Baptist Church of Pasadena ended center stage of the sanctuary.
Oh my goodness.
Members of the church barely seen video the incident for the first time in disbelief of what happened.
I seen that and I was going, wow, I wonder what his motive was.
I mean, I don't even know what to think. I mean, it's something that shouldn't happen.
Police say the man was spotted driving recklessly in the church parking lot when 2 off-duty Pasadena police officers working security were alerted. But before they could get to him, he quickly took off.
And when he pulled around to the front of the church, he actually jumped out of the vehicle while it was slowly moving. And during that time, the officers chased him into the church.
Armed with a nearly 6-inch screwdriver, police say the man made his way to the orchestra pit before tripping into the instruments. That's when police say a churchgoer tried to help police to stop the man.
A citizen actually tried to assist by using a music stand actually to strike the suspect to try to assist.
Hey, any way to stop him.
After a brief struggle, police were able to tackle the guy and take him into custody. He's since been taken to the hospital for treatment before he'll be formally charged and booked for aggravated assault against a public servant.
More recently was that very high-profile attack outside Fort Worth, Texas, where a deranged gunman opened fire during Sunday communion, killing 2 church members in a matter of seconds before being taken out by a member of the church security team himself. Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot about that one on the news, but I want to show you an interview recently given by Lionheart founder Tim Miller on Fox News to talk about some of the lessons that you could learn from this incident and what you want to look for as you're building your own church security team.
Country beefing up security in wake of that horrific Hanukkah stabbing inside a rabbi's home last weekend. This, as a Texas parishioner is hailed a hero for stopping a gunman who opened fire during Sunday's service. State law allowing legal gun owners to carry inside parishes. Our next guest runs a service providing security to houses of worship. Former Secret Service agent Tim Miller is CEO of Lionheart International. He joins us live now. Tim, Happy New Year to you. Thanks so much for being here, because we're seeing this trend, and perhaps the takeaway most recently out of Texas is that maybe more houses of worship would like this sort of thing. What do you say?
Well, Griff, first, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. And you're exactly right. I mean, the culture in our society is changing. And churches and synagogues, we need to have plans. We need to have the ability to stop what we saw happen both in Texas and New York. And the interesting dynamic is one was in a home and another was in a church. And those security concerns are not bound by traditional limits. So unfortunately, it's a new world, and we have to think about it in a different way.
Tim, so how can churches, synagogues, and many with little means that can't afford, to just hire a traditional security service, how can they better protect themselves?
Well, that's a great question, Griffin. That's kind of what we try to help with. There are basically three things that any church, regardless of size, needs, and that's a team that's focused on this, the right-hearted team, training, good training, and then technology. And technology such as cameras used to be, cost prohibitive, and now they're not. And what I found is that if we go in and we help organizations, churches, find the right people, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to get in the way of the mission of the church. The church is a place where you want hurting people to come. You want them to be able to come and not feel like it's a police state. But you definitely need the ability to protect them. And that's one thing I think all churches across the country are waking up to. They need to have a plan. They need to have a team. And we saw Mr. Wilson illustrate that beautifully in Texas. Thank God.
He, like you, years of training and fortunately kicked in. Let me talk to you about the law, though, in Texas. Should other states be emulating this? Are there lessons to learn from the Texas law that provided the other key element, aside from the personnel, and that is the ability to have someone, with a good guy with a gun against a bad guy with a gun?
Yeah, Griff, as you know, my background as a Marine in the Secret Service. I swore to uphold and support the Constitution. And the Constitution provides a protection, for citizens to defend themselves. I am a big advocate for the state in enabling churches and other organizations to protect themselves. Because can you imagine how this would have been different had they not had a trained team that was ready to act and respond, and they had to wait several minutes for the police to come? And I'm a big police supporter, but that would have been a horrific event. And so it does rest now with churches to protect themselves. And I agree that having laws in place that enable them to do that is critical.
All right, Tim Miller, thanks very much for your insight. Unfortunately, this is an era where perhaps we have to find our own solutions. Thank you for being here. Happy New Year.
Okay, folks, that's all we have today for the first episode of our new podcast. And you'll want to come back again for sure for our next installment, when we'll be sharing some specific ideas about perimeter security and how to identify and stop threats in the parking lot before they can escalate in your sanctuary. If you know of any incident at your church or some other church and would like to share it with us, please send an email to info@lhisg.com or visit our webpage, lhisg.com. That stands for Lionheart International Services Group. If you have any questions or we can help you further, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Together, we can make a difference in our churches and our communities and make everybody a little bit safer. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time back here on Secure Church Podcast.